Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Welcome back to another enlightening episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast, hosted by me, Phil Better, the podcast mogul. And today, we have a truly exceptional guest whose multifaceted career spans the realm of art, education, and creative mentoring. This guest has dedicated their life to inspiring others through their art, and their contribution are nothing short of extraordinary. Our guest is an accomplished artist and an art mentor with a profound passion for nurturing creativity in others. They are a distinguished author of several textbooks used in college courses on art history and appreciation, demonstrating their expertise and dedication to education, which is very important. Their academic credentials are impressive, holding a BFA in painting and theater, an MA in ceramics, and a certification in film production. They do it all. This unique blend of skills highlight their versatility and depth in the arts. Beyond the classroom, our guest has made significant strides as an actor and creative specialist. Their commitment in the arts is not just professional, but deeply personal, as they believe in the transformation and healing power of creative expression. They have touched countless lives through their teaching, mentoring, coaching, and sharing their vast knowledge and passion of the arts. Listeners, prepare to be inspired and moved by the remarkable journey and profound insight of today's guest. It is with great pleasure and anticipation that I introduce to you Karen DeLoach. Karen, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's a privilege. Thank you, Phil. What a great introduction. Thank you. I feel so honored.
I try my best. I grew up in the 90s. I love hip hop as well. So I always saw the hype man. And I'm like, oh, this person always gets the crowd jumping. And then when we transition to a podcast, it's like, my job's not to sing or dance or do anything. That's my guest job. My job is to hype you up. So I'm your hype man. I just hyped you up, Karen. I hope you are ready to go. So I'm going to start with our first question. Why did you decide, you had a burgeoning career in academics, painting, and all this. Why did you decide to switch to become kind of like a coach in this entrepreneurial world?
Oh, well, hello, COVID. I mean, didn't we all get shut down 3-4 years ago? Instead of going to campus and being live, now we're all going online. And so I was forced to become a digital entrepreneur. No, I really turned out to love it. I started taking classes and learning all I could about the digital world, and including building social media. I'm somebody that was, my daughter set me up for Facebook, and that was it, so this is steep learning curve. Let's just put it that way. But I want to encourage everybody who's in our older generation that didn't grow up with computers, that it is a wonderful world out here in digital land. And there's so much available and so much help. And I have turned out to love it. I mean, I would meet you. You're in Montreal. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. We would never have met,
No.
if it weren't for the digital world. So I love how it connects people, which is certainly very, very creative and entertaining to do that.
I agree. Like the fact that I've been able to connect with so many people across the globe, like not just in my own city, but like I have people in Australia. I've interviewed someone from the Maldives. Like this is like the creativity, and the world has exploded into a true global world thanks to the digital space. With what you've done so far, looking at art as self-therapy, when did you connect? Like, I'm guessing you've had it for a while, but when did you connect that like that's your superpower in the entrepreneurial world?
That's such a great question, because as an artist and an art teacher, you don't think about how much healing is represented in this field of the arts. And, my sons and husband, they're musicians, songwriters. My daughter's a writer. Obviously, I have books. So we incorporate a lot more than just visual arts as far as painting, drawing, and sculpture, which my kids are all studio babies, so they learn that. But they also, because I was in film school at the time, they all became part of movie making, in front of the camera, behind the camera. They're very involved in that. So the arts became part of our world. And I found that, my 4 children were raised into really very secure human beings, that there was something about engaging both that logical, critical thinking, order, timeliness of the left brain in academics, because we homeschooled them. We also were engaging our right brain with the creative part and really creating more brilliance. They never felt brilliant in the academic world, but because of their creative outreaches and creative development, it's created very well-rounded humans who are great parents too. So I'm convinced, not even just with my own family, but with working with students of all ages. I've worked with little children, middle schoolers, high school, and adults. So I've seen how arts really explode self-expression and joy and fulfillment in people, whether they identify as creatives or not, or are relegated to the artistes, right? For instance, the Army had their veterans coming back, damaged, and they started a summer program recently in Walter Reed Hospital, which is the foremost military hospital in the world. And they were doing therapy with these soldiers. And at the end of it, they pulled them and said, "What was your favorite part?" And these soldiers said, "Art." They were set free from art. And I started having experiences with some of my students. For instance, one of my students who had ADHD, dyslexia, was not doing well in academics, and his mom brought him to my studio, and he started thriving, being learning how to sculpt and paint and draw. And I started entering my students' work in a huge fair that had a youth competition in the Low Country, and they started winning. Well, this gave this child the confidence he needed to help overcome and do what he needed to do to overcome his mental, deficiencies, or what do you want to call them? Liabilities, whatever. He made it. He got through high school. He did all the things he needed to do with not only best in show entry in the fair the last year. And then tragedy struck. He got a brain infection that caused a stroke, which paralyzed him on the right side of his body. So there he was, 18 years old, totally depressed. He'd already had some huge victories in the art world, but now he's paralyzed. After 4 months in the hospital, he couldn't talk. He dragged himself with a walker, dragged the left side of his body. And his mom brought him back to my studio. They were trying to keep his right hand from curling up. Well, I'm like, okay, let's try doing some stuff with your left hand, and in a very short amount of time, this child was drawing and painting and writing left-handed. And then I get a call from his neurosurgeon who says, "I've never called anybody's art teacher before. What are you doing with David?" Because I'm not an art therapist. I'm an artist and an art teacher. I said, "I don't know. I'm just teaching him to draw left hand." He said, "Well, this kid is stronger with his weak hand than I am, and I'm a surgeon, and he's getting healing in the right side of his body." Sure enough, David now can talk. He can walk. You can't look at him and tell he's got a plastic skull, and he's living a life of humor with the sense of humor intact, that's just miraculous. And I said, I'm going to start really studying the science behind this, because this is just incredible. And, it turns out, wow, all the experts agree that there is something to participating in your creative outlets that brings healing to us mentally, emotionally, and physically. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I'd love to get that word out to everybody. I mean, look at you. All right. So as a podcaster, you're yes, engaged in your brilliant left brain with having to schedule and work with all the technology and line up your schedule. And then you've got your creative right brain active by creating brand new content. You're making something from nothing. So you're using your brain to its ultimate capacity, and you're not going to get brain fog. You're not going to get Alzheimer's. You're not going to get all those things they try to predict you have to get as you get older, because you're doing what you need to do to keep yourself viable. And it releases serotonin, the happiness chemical.
Listen, every time I have a podcast, I'm always overjoyed at the end of it. Before I go in, I'm super nervous. I'm always nervous before going on, which I think is very important, because it means that I actually care.
Good.
When I hear people say, "Oh, I never get butterflies anymore," then I'm like, you don't care anymore. You've lost that. For me, it's you've lost that connection to your audience, because this is my job as a host, as I see it, is to pull out all that gold. Like, and you just dropped some amazing gold with my first question, which I love. And I'm like, wow, this is great. Like the healing part, the story you just shared, that was amazing. My job is to do that. So I need the creativity to come up with those questions that will invoke
right.
those
Mhm.
great answers. And and yeah, the left, whichever side of the brain that's the focus side.
Yeah.
Listen, scientists, is not me. I'm a podcaster, as we can see. The experts are on the other end of the camera. But like you said, I have my logical side that takes care of everything, and the creative side is keeping me young and passionate
Absolutely.
about life, and I love that. Um,
Absolutely. I agree.
I want to talk about how you've leveraged your multiple disciplines, because you have your film, your theater, ceramics, and film production, as well as painting. How has these diverse disciplines influenced your approach to art and mentoring? And how can our listeners do the same to leverage multiple disciplines to enhance their creative endeavors?
Well, that's a good question because people think, oh, I don't have the time, to be creative. That takes too much time. But no, the experts disagree. And whether it's 15 minutes, 18 minutes, or 20 minutes a day is all it takes. And I have a free podcast. We can talk about that at the end, but they can get really a long list of ideas on how they can engage their own creative life. It doesn't take a lot of time to get these benefits. One idea. Do you like to sing, or do you know somebody that likes to sing?
I have someone in my life that likes to sing.
Well, they studied people singing in the shower, believe it or not.
I
So
would
there
be
you are.
surprised.
You're scrub-a-dub-dubbing, right? Rub-a-dub-dubbing in the tub, doing, the left brain thing. You're not even thinking about it. You're resting your left brain, and you're singing along your favorite song, right? And nobody cares. Nobody's listening. You get out, you're feeling good. You've been releasing all that serotonin and dopamine, and you're nice and squeaky clean, and you get an idea. Because as you've rested that left brain, let out the critical part, the right brain has been singing and engaging and creating neural pathways, and maybe come up with a new idea. Maybe it solves a problem you hadn't thought of before, or maybe it's a line for your journal. You've been trying to figure out how to get to the next part. But an idea comes to you, and you're not even relating it to the fact that you just been singing while you took a shower. But the scientist said you just did it. Our brains are very plastic, like we saw with that story with David. When there's part been injured, those neural pathways can create some plasticity and bring, restoration to people physically and emotionally. Another story is a mom who brought her child. Well, I make the moms work too. She turned out to be extremely, extremely creative. And then she came to me one day and said, Karen, I've been diagnosed with late stage breast cancer and been given 6 months. I said, look, I got a big show I'm preparing for that's in 9 months. It's a whole room installation made out of porcelain. Why don't you help me? Come to the studio and help me. She's like, I may not even be here in 9 months. And I'm like, so you'll leave a legacy for your family. Come on, it'll distract you. So she's going through the chemo, the radiation, the surgeries. And every day she wasn't doing that, she was in the studio, and we had a blast. We were laughing. We're coming up with ways to make vanilla or chocolate, dark chocolate, light chocolate. What glazes do we use? We're making cakes and cupcakes and candies and decorating them. And we ended up with hundreds of pieces to create this whole shop, Taste and See Sweet Shop. Sure enough, she was there in 9 months. She worked those 17 days of that show with me in remission. And now I'm happy to say the woman is completely cancer-free. Now, she did the medical stuff, but a lot of people do the medical stuff and don't make it.
Yeah.
She's cancer-free and having a blast. Kept her sense of humor. Again, I think there's a big connection between humor and the creative mind. I do.
Well, I have to say, like, what you're doing kind of reminds me of the film Patch Adams with Robin Williams.
I love
that
Dr.
movie. I'm sorry, that movie is probably the best movie, one of Robin Williams' best movies.
Absolutely.
And I remember a line in it that he says, and I'm probably paraphrasing, but humor is also medicine. And I think what you're doing is like, yes, the science tells us that radiology, all that's the real doctor stuff does help, because we know there are cases, but there's been more and more, just like you're showing, two, some people may say anecdotal, but for me, there's thousands of these anecdotals where people are laughing and having fun and doing something that brings them joy, that aids. It's like a steroid, if you will. It's just, it doesn't hurt, it just brings more power to what you're already doing. And I think those two stories tell, like, she's like, I may not be here 9 months. 9 months later, she's kicking ass. She's doing 17 days of this
Yeah.
probably not the easiest job as well, because I've gone to conventions. It's not an easy job. So putting in this labor for 17 days while in remission, after having pretty much her butt kicked by the medicine, because just hearing some stories about how going through radiology and chemo and all that, how it drains the body. The fact that she was doing both and came out on top, it just shows a testament to how powerful our creativity and art is. With what you're doing, I know you're also mentoring at the same time, because you're sharing your knowledge and you're helping them go. How has the mentoring improved, I'll say, with your time helping more and more people?
I love to be able to expose this word that everybody is creative and it's not too late and you're never too old message, that people can get out of depression. They can get out of feeling down or worthless or useless if they've retired, or if they're in a point of their life where their children are raised. Now, what do I do with my life? Kind of things. And, you can get a hint of it. What did you love to do when you were 5? What was fun for you when you were 5 and 6 years old? For me, I was directing plays in the playground. The monkey bars are a spaceship, and you're going to be the astronaut, and you're going to be the one in distress. So I was creating these playground scenarios, and I also was coloring. My mom gave us crayons and paper. Now my problem was the paper was too small, so I ended up coloring on the walls. Well, that didn't go over real big with my mom. Let me tell you, it got me in trouble. But she couldn't know that someday people were going to pay me big bucks to paint on their walls. So I asked my clients, what do you love? What was really in you when you were little? One of my sons, everything was a drum. The desk was a drum. The pots and pans, everything's a drum. Of course, he ended up a musician and a drummer, right? Of course. So look at your life. Did you love to spin and dance, run and jump? What did you love? Throwing and catching a ball. Well, guess what? Eye-hand coordination is one of the basic skills for learning to draw, is eye-hand coordination, learning to see where you're going to throw that ball, where you're going to catch it. I have grandchildren I get to do that with. I had 3 sons I got to do it with, raising them, but it really helps with being able to draw what you see, is eye-hand coordination. So, we have a school system, is certainly here in the United States, maybe it's true there in Canada, that focuses on the left brain, critical thinking, logic, order, timeliness, memorization, which are fantastic skills. They're easy to measure, they're easy to employ, and they tend to trivialize the right brain and the subjective world of imagination and creativity and intuition, which is a very sensitive and sensual part of us. And, most of us have had some kind of wounding in that arena before we're raised. How many people tell me I can't draw? Well, who told you couldn't draw? Why did you think you couldn't draw? At some point somebody said something, or they said you can't sing, or you can't dance, or you can't do something. And so that left brain critic can be quite a trial to overcome. I call it the left brain bully. If you tell me you can't do it, you're not good enough, you'll never make it. I had college professors that told me that about my painting. You wonder why I switched to ceramics and sculpture and graduate school? Because they told me I was a terrible painter. I wanted to do naturalism, paint portraits and people and places and things, and they wanted me to do abstractions, and I just, I could do it, but it wasn't my heart. And they used 4-letter words to describe my painting. Well, I went to 4 different painting teachers, and they all said the same thing. So I was like, okay, I'm not a painter, I can't paint. And for 10 years I couldn't finish a painting, because inside was that bully saying, you're not good enough. You're not a painter. They're right. I'd reach a point on it. I'd keep trying to have these cute little boys being born to me, and I wanted to paint them, and I couldn't finish them. They weren't good enough, and it was like everything was reinforcing that you can't do it. You're not good enough. Blah 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 blah. Until I got a mentor. So you asked me why. I'm convinced mentoring is important because I am a beneficiary of someone. He'd been to the Chicago Art Institute where they taught people, the basics of the foundations, and he taught me how to paint, which not only made me a good painter, but it made me a much better teacher because I know how to teach people how to paint, how to draw, how to do these things if they want to. Well, it changed my life, to say the least. And I learned the power of getting healing from those negative words. A lot of people fight perfectionism. Believe it, even young people can have this perfectionistic, I'm not good enough. If I try it and I'm not good enough. But you know what? Serotonin doesn't care. Just try it. And it still releases that joy for you, even if it's not perfect or not great. They have a whole category of neurology called neuro arts because they found the power of arts to heal. There's neural doodles people do. They just start, and it looks like those neurological connections between left brain, right brain, and making all these soft turns and coloring them. There's adult coloring books. Even my 92-year-old mother, she called me. She said, I was just coloring with my great granddaughters, and you're right. I got so much peace. I felt relaxed. I always thought of coloring as just for children. And it's not.
No, it's. I feel like there's a shift in the world right now where we're embracing the creative. We're embracing it more and more, or at least trying to, because I see a lot more people going into that creativity and equating it to business, because business can also be art.
Absolutely. Every entrepreneur is a creator. You're making something from nothing. You're providing a service. You're providing some way to serve other people that wasn't there before you did it. And it's powerful. And you're using all those left brain skills of order and function and technology, and then also you're combining it with those neural connections to the right brain, and you're going to be operating at your most brilliance. Albert Einstein said that imagination is intelligence having fun. And so there is that connection between right brain and fun, as we talked about a little bit. One of the things that your audience could try. All right,
Yeah.
you're in a beautiful city there, and
Mhm.
and a beautiful time of year. So your audience can hit a stroll. Okay, do a 15 to 20-minute stroll. Now, this is not using your Fitbit and counting the steps, although you can do that, but this can be alone or with a grandchild or a spouse or somebody important. It can be with a sketchbook, with a journal or not. It's up to you, but notice your surroundings. That right brain is sensual. It likes to be observant in the moment. And as you look at the sky, as you notice the colors of the leaves or the flowers, or smell the flowers, see the birds and hear them chirping, you're engaging your senses. You're engaging both your left brain, right brain as you walk along and enjoy being in the moment. My husband and I make that point every night. We connect that way. See other people walking dogs. We watch the sunset. Whatever we can enjoy about the day. It heals you, it restores you, it releases these wonderful happiness chemicals, and gives you another incentive for a new day. So I encourage everybody to do that.
I love taking walks. It's so freeing. You can put on some music, nice soft music or even hard music, whatever it is you want, as you walk, and you just observe the world and just see how, I don't want to say unobservant some people are, because when you're walking, you notice how some people are just in their own world, but also you notice the beauty. Like I found out that we have a hawk that lives close by to us. Didn't even know we had some sort of hawk from one of my walks, because the hawk, I'm guessing it's a female hawk, would follow me as I'm walking. I'm guessing I'm close to its nest, just making sure I ain't anything bad. But it was really interesting. I never knew. So I've been in this area for a long time. Never
Wow,
noticed it until I started taking those walks, and I have to
that's
agree with you.
cool. We have owls, and my husband does a real good owl hoot, hoo, 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 and those owls will answer him. I'm like, they've swooped over us with their big wingspan
Oh,
before. So, yeah, it's fun. It really is healthful and part of our wellness is engaging in these things, and it can be very simple. How about cooking? You like to cook? Do some
oh,
of
I
your
love cooking. I love cooking. Cooking
very
is
creative.
is my thing. I hate cooking for myself because it's so much work just for one person. But when I'm cooking for my partner or my friends and that, I go off. It's my art, if you will. It's my
It
painting.
is. It absolutely is, and it's a win-win. Everybody enjoys to taste your cooking too, and I think that's one reason why we love shows like that. They're very popular in America, cooking shows or survivor shows. We're watching people being presented with a challenge, and they have to come up with creative solutions. So we're seeing people operate in their left brain, right brain brilliance, and it inspires us. So I think that's, plus we could try some new recipes if we're watching those cooking shows, right? Get
Oh
some
yeah,
ideas.
100%. Wait, you can put coriander in that? My God.
Yes, good for the joints.
Yes. Where I want to go into the future a bit. I want to look into the future. I always like looking into the future, because it's always interesting how other people view their future. And I'm wondering, if we look into the future, 10 years into the future, what are you doing, or have you picked up a new discipline in that time? Because since you are a multidisciplined person.
For me, what am I going to be doing in 10 years? I
Yeah.
believe I'm going to be in my husband and I are going to be in a community. One of our visions is to have a community of artists where people can come and they can stay maybe with their tent or their RV and get training live. We can do online streaming at the same time. We can do classes, we can do workshops, we can have shows and really help people engage their own creative life in a deeper way and then take it to the world. So that's where we want to be in 10 years. And we're talking about the next 30 years. And I'm 70. So I'm not going anywhere for a long time.
I love it. And if you, I would say you were not over 60. I couldn't believe
Oh,
this.
thank you.
I Lord. We're coming up here near the end of the episode, which I hate because I'm having a great time chatting with you.
Good.
You're a ball of energy, and I love it. But obviously, this podcast is about investing in oneself. Can you share a personal story about a time you invested in your own growth, whether through education, self-care, or another form of personal development, and how it paid off in your career?
Well, I've shared a little bit about, my own right brain getting crushed in college and then getting the benefit of a mentor. And that was very real and an incredible advantage. But, as I attempted to come into this digital marketing world, I had to take classes, and I've been investing in my own career as a marketer online, because I tell you, they don't teach you that in art school. They don't teach you that in film school. They do not do that at all. So I really have had to take classes and learn how to even become a podcast guest, taking classes and connecting with others that are attempting to do what I am, as a coach, as an online coach. What does that take to do? These are not things that came naturally to me. And so I encourage everybody that has an idea, has a dream, has a way they want to serve people. And it's here, it's available with our social media platforms, with our ability to be on shows like Phil's, who's made a way for those of us that have an idea to present our idea to other people we would never connect with otherwise. So thank you.
You're so kind. If I wasn't already blushing, I'd be blushing even more, Karen, from your kind words. We are coming to the end, so I'm going to get to the last question here. It's a very important question because I have your 10-year-old self right beside me, coloring on my walls, which it's fine because you get paid oodles of dollars, so I have some early work here. But I'm wondering, what's one piece of advice you would love to pass back to your 10-year-old self?
Don't believe the naysayers. Don't believe those that are telling you no. Have grace for yourself to try new things. Protect that precious right brain and its sensitivity, and don't let it get damaged and wounded. Don't waste time believing the naysayers, because you can.
Great. I love that. Karen, I'm going to jump off stage here. I'm going to let you tell my audience where they can connect with you, how they can follow you, all that fun shindiggity stuff. So the floor is yours.
Well, I thank you very much. Yes, if you would love to learn more about art as self-therapy, please go to www.getcreativewithkaren.com. And there you can register for my 3-part pop-up podcast that goes into depth about more of the way you can be creative with some more ideas, and explains the marriage dance, as Steve Jobs called it, the marriage dance between science and art, and the science behind healing, as art therapy is healing us. So go to www.getcreativewithkaren.com and let's connect. Blessings.
I love that, Karen. Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. I had such an incredible time asking some great questions, but also listening to your amazing advice about how art has helped change multiple lives.
Thank you. My privilege. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. To my audience, you know the drill. Down in the show notes down below, you'll be able to connect with Karen, get access to that free pop-up podcast, which is going to take you to the next level. And as always, I want you to remember to invest in yourself.